ladies and gentlemen. Munciana Courtside, Show 5, Season 6. Lot to talk about. Front page Indianapolis Star. Not bad. It was nice. It's about time that something really good has been on the front page of the paper. But
something positive.
Take great pride in that. I hope that we warrant the accolades, but I will tell you that we're still a work in progress, and this just gives us a little bit of momentum and a little bit of impetus to get better. But it was a great article yesterday and a great week of high school volleyball, ranging from Yorktown continuing to roll, Mud Sox, you looking like looking like Nostradamus with your predictions last week. I'm anxious to see what kind of things you bring to the table this week. Without further ado, Randy Gardner.
All right, last week highlights, we talked about Monday night. We kind of wondered what was going to happen. Concordia heading to Angola, and Concordia 1-5.
You go, Concordia. One of the things we were talking about is Concordia has kind of been the proverbial queen, I guess, or king, however you want to do, the royalty of the Summit City. A little up and down this year, but Trish, one of the better coaches in the state, finds a way to take down a hot Angola team. First loss this season for Lloyd Ball's unit. It'll be interesting to see how they rebound.
Yep. Tuesday night had a lot of good games. Yorktown, HSC. They did get out the brooms.
Yorktown did indeed sweep Hamilton Southeastern. Hamilton Southeastern had some chances in this one. I had set point and set two.
Yep. Multiple.
I'll be honest, played it a lot closer than a lot of people imagined. I mean, it was one of those games where if they got a break or could make something happen, Yorktown just rarely gives you breaks. And whatever you get against them, you earn. HSC just wasn't capable of earning enough points, but made you look like a genius, so congratulations.
Thank you. Wapahani took on Hagerstown. They also brought out the brooms.
Yeah, Wapahani just a little too much at every position. Hagerstown's a little bit limited in certain spots. They've got a couple of bad rotations, which most high schools do have, and Wapahani pretty good at exploiting that. Well-coached team and really a hungry team because they're so young.
Yeah, and I like there was an article they were talking about with Brian Dale, and he was talking about, playing harder teams this year, and he said, this is a good game for us to understand we're a good team, we're not a great team yet.
Brian Dale's one of the most underrated coaches in the state, so that's a great comment.
Yeah. Mount Vernon took on Brebeuf. We talked about that. They finally got in the top 10. Brebeuf trying to get in last week, and they swept them. Mount Vernon
we said that game was going to dictate who stayed in the top 10 or who made that move, validated their moves. And Brebeuf, very, very young. And Mount Vernon, very, very seasoned. Eric Beaumont's been working hard at that group, and that's a good win for Eric.
Yeah. And then Bar Reeve down the south taking on Springs Valley. Always a great game. They beat them in 4.
Yeah, and Bar Reeve, like I said, got upended late in the week.
Yep.
By Evansville, Memorial, I believe it was, and but still, they're the class of that small class system, 2A, 1A guys. They're always good.
Yep. Thursday night we talked about Yorktown and Mount Vernon, and it went 4.
They finally lose a set. First set that Yorktown lost all year long at the hands of Mount Vernon. Lost set 1 and then come back and sweep out the match. I think it's a case of two things. I think Yorktown kind of overlooking those guys maybe a little. They're a little beat up with Stinson with the bad thumb right now. But also Mount Vernon's very good.
Yep.
And so I think it's a mix of both things, but a solid match and a really good match. It's kind of weird to say that it's a great match for Mount Vernon, but it really is. Taking a set off of these guys is a big deal. Maybe a good match for Yorktown, kind of a wake-up call as well.
Yep. Then we talked about the Mud Sock. HSC ended up winning that in 5.
Yeah, I thought HSC would win it. I thought it would be a very good match. If you remember the last thing we talked about, I just thought it was going to be a lot better than what people thought because it's one of those matches where no one really cares what your record is.
Yep.
Your record really doesn't matter in this one, and you were in attendance. I've seen video from it. The comment I made to what was sent to me via text and the video was, this is why you should go watch high school volleyball or high school sports in general. Fans were crazy. The students were out of their minds. You know, I know it's a rivalry game, but by and large, there's more heart, more energy, more passion. You know, somebody asked me the other day about watching NFL. I've got no real interest.
Yeah.
You know, I'm tired of hearing the things that go along with professional sports. College sports is getting the same kind of knock. I'm just telling you that that atmosphere for HSE and Fishers, you know, no wonder the Mud Sox are a big deal.
Yep.
That's awesome, but it was a great win for HSE team coming out of the hole. Fishers had them.
Yep.
And almost caught them again in 5, as you put it. But what were your thoughts on that?
You know, I thought first set, Fishers kind of came out and got attacked. HSC came rolling, ready to go, and really hit the ground running. Fishers made a lot of errors, and then that's why HSC took the first set. The next 2. And it was kind of back and forth, and Fishers looked a lot more steady at that point. But the 4th set was where I thought HSC started getting back where they were at the start. They got a good run late in the 4th set to win it, to send it into 5. I mean, Fishers was up throughout the 4th set, and then they put a nice run together. In the 5th set, had a couple errors on their own end, Fishers, and couldn't get out of the rotations, and then
they got down the hole.
Yeah, they were
7-1.
7-1 and 11-2 before Jada Allen got to the front row, and they made a run, and then they had a phantom touch call.
11-2 is a tough hole to dig out of in set 5.
No doubt. Another game to think we talked about was Dwenger took on Carroll, and they swept those guys.
Like we said, Dwenger's real deal athletically. I mean, they're loaded, and you know, Hauser gets his troops moving. It's like we talked about it. That Fort Wayne area is up for grabs.
Yep.
Dwenger right now the class of the Summit City, but it'll be open.
Yep. Wapahani and Muncie Burris, 5-game thriller. Wapahani comes out, so 3A Muncie Burris finally loses that first big match, and you know, other than McCutcheon lost, which McCutcheon's great, so it's kind of their first game where they came back to reality, I thought, a little bit.
Wapahani is, like I said, they're fueled by youth. They're a team that's only going to get better as the season goes on because of coaching and because of the youthfulness and how much they have left to learn. Burris, Steve Shondell trying to rekindle the glory years, and he's really done a nice job. It was a team that had a lot of talent coming back, but you know, that kind of gives me flashbacks of the good old days, and it sounded like it was a great match, and it's good for both those schools. Both those schools are kind of in a rebuild, but great 5-set victory for Wapahani.
Yep. The one kind of that stuck out to me as a little bit of surprise. I mean, we kind of talked about it being a possibility. Heritage, Maggie Castleman's squad takes down Leo at Leo in 4.
Well, like I said, the footage you've showed me with Leo is much like Dwenger. They've got some real deal kids and some bangers. Heritage Castleman's is a great player.
Yep.
You know, she's just steady, and steady tends to win in high school.
Yep.
She doesn't make a lot of errors, and she takes care of the ball. Heritage seems to be playing the same way, but that's a great win for Heritage. A team that's on the rise.
Yep, no doubt. Saturday, we talked about the Newcastle invite. Had Newcastle, Fishers, Brownsburg, Silver Creek. Came down to Newcastle and Fishers to decide the champion, and Newcastle swept them.
Convincingly is an understatement. I saw those scores come across, and I thought that players were missing from Fishers or whatnot, but you know, from everybody I've talked to, Newcastle was clean, which they don't do on a regular basis. They play the polar opposite of Yorktown. Yorktown plays a let's let you make error game. Newcastle makes a lot of errors, but is very flamboyant and very explosive. It sounded like they were both explosive and clean, which, you know, when the bigger, stronger team is flamboyant and clean, it's a disaster for the opponent. In this case, Fishers. You know, he ended a pretty tough week. The Mud Sox was kind of a downer, but the beating Newcastle put on him was kind of an exclamation point to a tough week.
Yep. Talk about the Lazy Boy games of the week. Monday night, got a couple of good games. Usually we don't have a lot of Monday night games.
Yeah.
Couple teams that have 6-7 losses, but are always good teams.
Yes.
It's always a big rival. Westville head to Carmel.
You know, both those teams are teams that could cause trouble come sectionals. I told you last week going and seeing Carmel play, I was impressed with them. I thought they played hard. They played really, really hard. Westfield is a team that all year long we've said just needs a little bit of offensive firepower to go along with Mackenzie Daphne.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get the firepower, that team could be very, very good. And, we're sitting here with about a month left, and we got to go. We really got to go now. And those two teams, if they could shift gears, and maybe this is the match that gets them going. If they can shift gears, those two teams could be a real headache, and they're both upset potential at sectional times. At any level, they can both play.
Yep. Another game I liked is HSC will head to Pendleton Heights. Pendleton Heights really putting a good, quiet season together. They got 5-6 losses, but they've only lost to a Mount Vernon, a Yorktown, a lot of good teams. They beat a good Westfield team a couple weeks ago in force.
Avery Ross on the pin. Ramsey Gary is a kid that's going to be a name that everybody's going to know soon in the back row. And then they probably have as good a middle attack with Landman and again Gracie and those. They're just really, really good in the middle of the court. Maybe the strongest middle in the state. You could argue that. And Blair Barksdale has put together a nice little program.
Yep.
Pendleton Heights is good. I don't think they can play with HSE, but they're good. They're the most improved team in the area and probably the best Pendleton Heights team in the last 15 years.
Yep. Tuesday night, really the game that's sticking out is Yorktown traveling to Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle beat Yorktown the last time Yorktown came there. It was the last regular season loss for Yorktown. It decided the conference title, but it was out without Bella Rosenthal, who set out that match. So it was the last time Yorktown lost a regular season game.
Yep.
That was 2 years ago. Coming into this, we were going to be talking about the streak, set streak. Never losing a set. But Yorktown, this is the consummate battle. If you don't have anything to do on Tuesday night, this probably be worth your money. I think that if you want to watch volleyball on both ends of the spectrum, one end of the spectrum is about just ball control, taking care of the ball, no mistakes. The other end is just really smash mouth volleyball. Big, strong kids led by the Shaft Masters, Layla Smith, Wilkerson. They're going to try to pound you. The net could and should be dominated by Newcastle. The back 20 could and should be dominated by Yorktown. It really depends on how well Yorktown can navigate the Newcastle size of the net. And it really depends on how well Newcastle can navigate Yorktown's service pressure. And at the end of the game, it comes down to Newcastle limiting errors. If they limit errors, they're in really good shape. If they go into an error fest, if they make 10 or more errors a set, they will lose those sets. Yorktown's going to be in the 5 error mark, give or take 1. And I think that anytime that Newcastle gets 10 plus, they'll lose. So that's what I would be watching. This is going to be a heck of a ball game.
Yep. My thoughts, being former coach at Newcastle, I take a lot of pride in those guys still. Now living in Yorktown, I've taken a little more pride in them. And it like you talked about, there's a lot of good pieces to the puzzle. Yorktown, even though if you look at the national rankings, Newcastle's ahead of them, but Yorktown has been unstoppable over the last year and a half, 2 years, like you talked about.
Champions until beaten.
Correct. And that is why they will be beaten on Tuesday night. I'm going with the Castle. I'm going with Shaft Masters. They're going to come through. They're going to bring the heat. I don't think anybody can match up with those guys. Layla Smith's going to be an X factor, I think, in the middle of the court.
So they're going to handle the ball long enough to get
ball
it to
control wise, I'm going with Conway and Cox having a steady game. I think they're playing well. They're doing a lot of good things. They've rolled Fishers. They had a good weekend this weekend. I think they're maybe getting over that, and they're starting to put together a squad. Sarah, Josh, the crew, take down Yorktown for the first time.
You're going to call out sets or anything? You're calling for the sweep?
I'm not calling for the sweep. I'm not going to get that crazy, but it will be over in 4.
Okay. All right. Last week he was the pride and joy of Yorktown. The folks at Yorta wanted to treat him to free nachos. This week he just got to be careful his car's not egged. So you heard it here first. Newcastle over Yorktown. The man's on a roll. I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game.
Thursday night, we got Muncie Burris, Yorktown.
Mm-hmm.
So Yorktown back on again.
2 legend programs. You know, Burris was the most legendary program in the history of the United States. Yorktown stole that crown from them. Yorktown stole that crown from Burris, and it'll be interesting. That's a clash of 2 very disciplined coaches, 2 guys that, and Bloom and Shondell, that do it as well as anybody. That should be a fun one for the Burris guys to kind of use as a barometer. They will not get out of Yorktown with a win, and they'll get extended. It'll be 3 games.
All right.
It'll be 3 games, but I think it'll be a really good test for this Burris team to find out just how close they are.
I don't think Burris is going to come close.
No, tough week for Yorktown.
And Yorktown, here's the bad news for Muncie Burris. Sorry to let you know this. If, with my predictions, go correct, you're in for a bloodbath on Thursday, because they are going to come back with a vengeance after a loss. It could be ugly.
Bloom coach teams generally do. And
beat down.
I think it was, I don't know, I think that Gerald Ford was in office the last time Yorktown lost 2 straight. So if you're right, that could be ugly.
Yes. Also on Thursday night, Mount Vernon, Newcastle. That should be a good game.
Trap game.
That's why I'm going to go with this. I think Newcastle could be in for a night that evening, because they're going to be living high life after the Yorktown game.
Yeah, it could be a trap game. If they beat Yorktown, then they go to they got a Mount Vernon team coming in that hates them. Mount Vernon cannot stand them. I think that the Newcastle beating that was issued a couple of years ago on Mount Vernon is what brought Eric Beaumont out of the closet in regards to coaching. He sat in the stands that night and kind of came out that next year and said, hey, we're going to do some damage. And he's built this Mount Vernon team. This Newcastle game team, look at it, right in between. It's Yorktown, Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon's good.
Yep.
And then the next match is McCutcheon, and followed by Providence. And so they're going to be they'll see Providence. But they're going to see some really good volleyball. And then you're looking, there's really 3-4 ranked teams in a row. Mount Vernon is a sleeper. They're just sitting there laying in the tall grass. And if Newcastle does beat Yorktown, that could be an upset alert.
I agree. I think that one's going to be a good game.
I do too.
I think it's not going to be a 3-0 sweep. I think it's going to be either a 4 or 5, but I feel like Newcastle gets out of that one as well. Concordia, they're going to take on Fort Wayne Blackhawk Christian. Don't really know a lot about Blackhawk Christian. I heard they had a pretty good libero, kind of under the radar younger kid. So that could be an interesting battle. I've heard they've had a pretty good year. So
Battle of Privates, the Summit City Privates.
Saturday, we got a little duel right there coming around. We got Newcastle playing McCutcheon, which at that point we could be talking about Newcastle trying to finish up a great week with McCutcheon. McCutcheon is very, very good.
Well, they wouldn't be finishing. They would just be continuing, because they get the winner of the next match.
Correct.
Which is Dwenger and Providence. So your reward for if you get through a really, really good McCutcheon team, which once again, I don't know. You get through McCutcheon, you get the winner of Dwenger and Providence. And Providence, there's an awful lot of people saying they're the best team in the state of Indiana.
I'm going with Newcastle, undefeated the whole week.
It's getting out of control.
They're going to win everything this week.
This show is going to be sponsored by Monster from here on out, because the energy drink man over here is just going crazy with the picks. Calling for Newcastle.
So I'm calling Newcastle over McCutcheon. I'm calling Providence over Dwayne. I'm calling Newcastle over Providence. And I'm going to go McCutcheon over
Newcastle sweeps out this week.
Correct.
Hands down your favorite for state championship. You've got to start whispering that if that happens. That's going to be a heck of a week. That's a great week of games. Great job picking those games.
If I had a Newcastle shirt, I'd be showing it right now.
Here we go. All right. Let's get into Mermaid Pool, shall we?
Mermaid Pools. We got this in.
Yeah, this is nice. This is a nice touch. The other thing you've noticed is we don't have those people walking by the set interrupting us and Randy glaring at soccer players in the background. This is a new touch. We're in private now, so we're kind of excited. Mermaid Pools. This background sponsored by Mermaid Pools. Maggie Castleman.
Yep.
Would be my first on the list of top players to watch. And you just talked about Heritage, and the junior from Heritage is a Purdue Fort Wayne commit. Played for Randy a couple of years ago, but just a really gifted kid.
Yep.
crafty kid, ball control kid, hardworking, diligent, blue collar, old school. Great little ball player.
Yep.
And I think she's one of the reasons Heritage is having the season they're having.
She's kind of a Delaware County kid in Fort Wayne. Just
She's
kind
good.
of her makeup.
She's a blue collar kid. Abby Mesh is everybody talks about her. Mesh is the kid that every single coach that I've talked to this year that's seen her once has come back talking about her. Avon's struggling a little, but this sophomore is a high flyer, and she's heading to Georgia, so she's a Power 5 kid. But Mesh can I remember watching her at the state championships last year, and as a freshman, I mean, she can go, man.
Yep.
And she's bouncy, but she's got a live arm, and I think she's going to turn into a really elite player.
Yep.
One of my favorite young players in the state of Indiana.
Yeah. Stacy from Columbus East, we talked about her when she was like 13. She played for her, and she loved her.
Yeah,
that was one of her all-time favorite kids, so doesn't surprise me.
Layla Smith, junior, not committed. One of the first kids we've had on here that's not committed yet. Layla Smith is new to the game. If you haven't seen her play, you should go watch her. She's
Tuesday
long.
night.
She's very, Tuesday night against Yorktown. She's long. She's very athletic. Really a quiet kid, but a quiet assassin on the floor. She slowly will find a way to take you apart. When this kid is in rhythm and the Newcastle ball control is on task, this kid is unstoppable because of the people around her. I mean, you can't focus solely on her because you got Mabry Shaftmaster or Melanie Shaftmaster in the front row with her, and it's impossible to nail her down. One-on-one, she can beat anybody in the state. This kid's gonna, not committed today, will be committed soon.
Oh, yeah.
She's awfully good.
Yep. And one thing I just love about her is she's just figuring stuff out, but how long she is. She does some things where she just goes up and reaches over kids and throws balls
She's
around.
go gadget.
Yeah, no doubt.
She's good. Kate Vincent, that's the senior from Yorktown, setter. Playing out of position. I mean, she sets for Yorktown, but she's a bro.
Yep.
I mean, she's a bro, and she's a Ball State commit. She's going to go play for Kelly Miller there. Very, very gifted kid. The next, she's in a long line of kids that have been setters at Yorktown, but liberos everywhere else, and whether it be Acree or Rosenthal or anything. There's been a long list of kids that have done that role. Vincent just is yet another great quality ball control player, super steady, underrated as a setter.
Correct.
Underrated as a setter. Maybe it's a size thing, or maybe it's because she only does it half the season. But Kate Vincent's a real deal, and you'll see that at Yorktown Newcastle. She's going to be a real key in that Newcastle game, trying to navigate that big block of Newcastle and trying to get her kids open swings.
Like you talked about, she's just steady across the board. She's not a bad little decent blocker for her size.
No.
She is functional, but what I love about her is she's just locked in. She's calm. There's no moments of crazy high, crazy low. It's just steady.
Steady. It's the same as Yorktown. Yep. And last this week is Ashley Ack, at Center Grove Senior. Had a chance to watch her play last week against Carmel. She was setting. She's a bro. She's going to Indiana State. At Indiana State, she will bro. Unlike Vincent, that's not her normal role. She's filling that role because MJ Hamill's still out with the appendectomy.
Yep.
This kid is a warrior, man. She just competes. I really enjoy watching old school volleyball kids go, and she can do just about anything. She scored 3 times against Carmel, and as a bro, that's just got to jack you up. But she had a couple of dumps. She had a couple, just some really neat stuff. But she plays the game like it's supposed to be played, with great passion, great competitive nature, and really great knowledge of the game. Ashley Eck is going to be a great commit to Indiana State. But one of the reasons Center Grove has stayed upright without MJ Hamill.
No, and just from what you've told me, I haven't really watched her, but everything you've kind of came back, it's been high praise.
No,
so
she's fun. She's fun
got
to
to be
watch.
a good player. All right, Gear Munciana season rankings. Talking about number 10. We'll go ahead and get started there.
Still good. Got a tie still. Still not able to make up our minds. This thing is pretty fluid. It's a time of year where people are starting to separate a little bit. And you're seeing the teams that have been winning consistently have continued to win. And some are kind of getting picked off. We talked about Angola getting picked off. We talked about Bar Reeve getting picked off. I don't know, My 10 is a co-10, Wapahani. I really believe the best core of young kids in the state, freshmen, led by Chloe Cook. They're very, very good. They beat a Hagerstown team that's well coached, and a Hagerstown team that was in the hunt last year. Eastern Hancock team, and then they beat Muncie Burris, which is always a tough task. And Burris is starting to get a little momentum, a little confidence, and so Wapahani beating them is a big deal. They're one of my teams at 10. Sharing that spot with them will be Heritage Christian. I've talked to a couple of different people, and, albeit maybe fans of Heritage Christian, they said that the show that Heritage Christian put on last week was the best volleyball they've played all year. This is a team I said at the start of the year I thought had a chance to win it all. When you've got Snyder dishing the ball to Colvin, it's a pretty good combo. And Colvin's touching 10-6. And so there's only, a handful of kids in this tri-state area that can go there. That's a huge attack. And so when they handle the ball, they are really, really good. And that's why they're my number 10. And they're at 11-1. So I like where Heritage Christian's at.
I like about that, your 10A and your 10B.
What up?
That's your 2A state championship right there, big fella.
Well, it could be. It could be. He's going out on a limb on everything else. I'm surprised he's not calling a sweep from one of those two teams. But that's a very good point. And Wapahani Heritage Christian are right there, neck and neck.
Yep. Number 9?
Heritage. Castleman is, they beat a good Leo team. That Leo team
Leo's been rolling. They're about 9-10-4.
They're really, really good. I think you're not going to see. It's kind of like the old days in Delaware County where teams would make the state championships with 6, 7, 8 losses because they would just take so many dings locally. Fort Wayne's got that going right now. I mean, everybody's beating everybody, but everybody's making everybody better. That's the thing I like about what's happening in Fort Wayne is that every single team in that area is capable of getting out of that in regional time. But they're all making one another better. There's not a boring game in Fort Wayne right now amongst that Power 5 or so. And Heritage right now, they've earned the right to be in the top 10. Put them at 9.
Yep. Number 8?
Evansville Memorial. They didn't lose this week, so I move them up from 10. And they beat a good Bar Reeve team.
Yep.
A good Bar Reeve team, a team that we had on the cusp of, moving up. And so Evansville Memorial is a team that we've had on our radar all year long. And they're 14-1. They've got a nice little win streak going. I go Evansville Memorial at 8.
Yep. 7, building some momentum finally.
Well, Hauser's squad. Timmy Hauser's a very, very good coach, and he's got a very, very good team. He beat Norwell and Carroll this week. Carroll, the home of Jackie Quaid, but 9-2, they do have a little momentum going. 5 or 6 in a row, and they're starting to put on a show. So I like Dwinger.
Yep. All right. Number 6.
We talked about him with Eck. Center Grove, very gifted in the middle of the court. Burgess is a very good player. They're solid, and the neat thing about them is they've kept this thing adrift. I mean, they're 12-3, and they played, I guess, maybe the last 4 or 5 matches without MJ Hamill, who's arguably as good a setter as there is in the state. I would go Hamill and Shaftmaster have to be one in the top 1 or 2 in the state. I mean, those two are gifted players. MJ Hamill going to Wisconsin, so I mean, she can play Wisconsin. Going to Wisconsin, she can flat out play. And the Center Grove team, what's amazing is you lose a player that gifted and you stay adrift. Chris Dew has done a great job. This may be his best coaching job. I have Center Grove at 12-3.
Number 5.
HSE. Their only loss this week is to Yorktown in a very good game. They came back and drummed Mount Vernon. And that tells me a little something about this HSE team, that they didn't dwell on what happened. You pack for where you're going, not for where you've been. And I think Jason Young's doing a good job keeping these guys focused on next game.
Yep.
Not looking in the rearview mirror. If you spend all of your time in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash sooner or later. This HSE team proved that they can move on. Gut-wrenching loss to Yorktown, and that's several in a row now. Yorktown's had them now for about the last 2 or 3 years. They come back in what could have been, once again, a trap game, and they blast Mount Vernon.
Yep.
And, that's kudos to them. 9-3, play one of the toughest schedules in the state. I have them at 5.
Yep. Number 4, undefeated.
Undefeated, and that's why they're up there is McCutcheon. They hammered Noblesville, Danville.
Real test this weekend.
Yeah, real test this weekend. Real test this weekend. You know, if they get by Newcastle, they're going to get Providence or Dwenger. It's going to be a really good weekend for this McCutcheon group to kind of get a feel for where they're at. You need to get those feels now. You know, that's the thing that's, let's say Yorktown beats, let's say Newcastle beats Yorktown. It means absolutely
Zero.
Nothing. None of these matches mean anything. They just give you barometers. In fact, some people would argue it'd be better off to lose one of those matches to have the revenge motive going into sectionals or regionals. McCutcheon's going to have an opportunity to have some of those wins that tell them where they're at. Win or lose, these should be a great learning experience for my number 4 team. McCutcheon is athletically gifted as any team in the state.
Yep. Number 3.
Providence. We've been doing this show now, was it 6 years?
Yep.
That is unbelievable. 6 years. I don't know if Providence has really ever been out of the top 3. They've always been in the picture.
I definitely know they have been.
Never been out of 5.
No, top 5.
Yeah, they've always been in our top 3, 5 maybe at the worst. One of the finest traditions in this state. You know, when it was really weird when the Cathedral tradition, you know, when Gene stepped down at Cathedral and kind of handed over the tradition kind of went to Terry Perica at Providence. They have become that team. They're scary. They're different than the Cathedral teams of old. You know, the only thing they have in common is both parochial schools. The Cathedral teams have those big physical kids. Providence tends to beat with ball control. They're very similar to Yorktown year in and year out, and that's why you always hear about them. But you know, great fan base, great coach, great players, and number 3, and they're going to get a chance to play some people this weekend as well. So it should be nice.
Yep. All right, number 2.
Still Newcastle, the only team in the top 4 to have a loss, and their only loss is to Assumption, which is not
understandable.
Not a bad loss. Newcastle just really. You'd like to hope and think that they're hitting their stride. You know, they obliterated a good Fishers team. That is a good team. Whenever you have Hayworth and Allen on a team, you know, with Mill, with Roberts. I mean, that's a good team.
Yep.
A really good team.
You keep them to 10.
And you hold those guys to 10. That's scary. If that Newcastle team shows up on Tuesday, your prediction may well be true. I still go Newcastle at 2, something to prove.
Yep. Number 1.
Until somebody beats them. You're calling for that to happen on Tuesday night. Until somebody beats them. They handled 2 ranked teams last week, HSE in straights, Mount Vernon in 4 after hiccuping in set 1. You know, they're just awfully good. They're just awfully good, and they're going to get tested. A lot of things are going to get tested. It's a very disciplined team. It's a team that's rugged when they're in a hole, and they're used to competing 24/7, and that's going to be an interesting matchup with them in Newcastle. But 1 and 2, I don't know if you can find better.
No.
I don't know if you can find better, and I think that highlights an absolutely, maybe the best week of volleyball in this state when you look at the games going on. That matchup tomorrow night really highlights what could be the best week of volleyball in the state of Indiana until we get to sectionals.
Well, like you talked about, 1 and 2 on Tuesday night. Saturday, you have the number 2, the number 3, the number 4, and the number 7 are all in the same tournament.
4-team tournament. So if you don't get to Newcastle on Tuesday night, dear God,
Drive to Indy on
go to Indy,
Team
Indiana, and catch those guys. I mean, that's an insane tournament. You got Newcastle, Providence, McCutcheon, Dwenger, 2, 3, 4, and 7. You know, it gives you a chance to see volleyball at its best. And I'll tell you, like I said, after watching that little clip of HSE and Fishers, there's no better level. I mean, it's what a fun level of volleyball to watch, fan-wise, passion-wise, really skill-wise. You know, spend a little money. Like I said, drop $5,
Yep.
Get a ticket, get a pop and a dog, and sit back and watch some tremendous athletes. The athletes you're going to be seeing in the future on the SEC network, ESPN, the Big Ten network. Watch them today for little or no money. This is going to be your last chance to catch great players. But let's see if Randy's correct in his prognostications this week. And like I've said before, enjoy the week, enjoy the volleyball, and as always, be good sports fans.